He was in their hearts.
Yeah, yeah, he made that connection in a very real way, which is why endings like today are
They are
so
hard.
powerful. And while it may be true that there's no crying in baseball, there's always crying on inside sources because I think crying with strangers would solve most of the world's problems. And to have a chance to reflect on someone who had that kind of impact. He spent some time on some amazing stories.
Yes.
I think the work he did with Vietnam was most powerful. For some that may not remember some of those things, Carol, give us a little bit of that.
He always said that in his 43 years at the anchor desk, that going to Vietnam in 1967 and talking to Utahns serving there
Mm,
was the most powerful story he ever did and his favorite.
yeah.
He was able to not only visit with these very brave soldiers, but what he did when he came home was called every single one of their mothers
I love
to
that.
tell them the time that he had shared
Yeah.
with their sons, and that's Dick Nourse.
Yeah, so powerful. And obviously, as time went on and as he got to the latter part of his career, I think one of the things that I think has been so interesting to see, just even in the last decade or so with Dick, was just his fierce determination to make sure that there was integrity in journalism, and that he saw that as part of a crucial role in the country, and that you had to have politicians that respected it. You had to have journalists who lived it, and a community that could understand it.
Well, I will say from the inside, Dick worked very hard on every script he ever read. He just went over it and over it and over it. And so we watched him, we the younger journalists, and
Mm,
tried to emulate. He wasn't the only one. Bruce Lindsay comes to
yeah,
mind as
yeah,
someone with that kind of intensity. But yes, he was deeply saddened that we would be called fake news or enemies of the state.
mm,
That hurt him to the core.
yeah,
And I talked to him about that and allowed him to voice his concerns
yeah.
about that.
So amazing. And again, if you're just joining us, KSL anchor Dick Nourse has passed away today at the age of 83. He was the trusted voice in a really crucial part in the history of our state and our nation. Part of a tag team of Norris, Welty, and James that, of course, was just in the Journalist Hall of Fame and all
Yes.
of that. Give us just one more peek, Carol, and maybe some behind the scenes in terms of what you saw and what you learned as a young journalist from Dick Norris.
In those days when we all sat in the newsroom together, which is not so much the case
Yeah,
now, people work from home or they leave from their homes to
yeah,
go out to, and I miss that camaraderie. Um, Dick felt it was important to laugh every
mm,
day in the
mm,
newsroom because it's difficult
yeah,
what we do.
heavy,
It's
yeah,
serious,
yeah,
and it's important. But he was, and he had one of those great voices, laughter voices. I mean,
mm,
not the deep resonant, it was kind of high pitched.
yeah,
And when he laughed, everyone laughed. And I deeply regret that we don't have those times today. He and Bob and Paul would tease each other incessantly, and it was delightful.
yeah,
And it was calling across
mm,
the newsroom to one another and teasing people. It was important that we had that kind of bond, I
yeah,
think, because then we had to turn
yeah,
and do the serious stuff.
yeah,
So he was the kind of larger than life personality,
yeah.
but there was an energy that happened in that newsroom as soon as he walked in
Uh,
every single day.
what
Loved it.
what's the one thing we all ought to think different or do different today as part of the legacy of Dick Norse?
I I think remember people who are struggling not just with cancer but with something. If you would go out to dinner with him, he would table hop most of the time, or people would come to
Yeah.
him. Um, it was important to look people in the eyes and shake hands or hug. The community was his. The state was his. He loved people. Yeah. We need to love each other more.
Yeah. Great lessons. Carol Mikita, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Today, some important reflections on a TV legend, longtime KSL anchor Dick Nourse has passed away at the age of 83. He taught us how to deal with adversity, 3 bouts of cancer. He taught us how to laugh. He taught us how to listen to important stories to get to the principles that bind us all together. Dick Nourse, truly a legend, something for all of us to think about today.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. This year's flood watch is affecting roads.
The water is not quite lapping over the bridge that I'm standing on, but getting very close.
And it's affecting homes.
The whole RV park was pretty much underwater.
Between now and the end of the month, we've got to get this right. Listen for updates 2, 3, 4 times a day. Flood watch on KSL News Radio.
Tonight, Law & Order Thursday saves the best for last with a can't-miss season finale event. First on Law & Order, McCoy faces his greatest challenge yet, his own daughter, played by Sam Waterston's real-life daughter. How cool is that? Then in a crossover event, Benson and Stabler join forces to take down a deadly murder-for-hire website. The Law & Order Thursday season finale event, tonight on NBC.
Then on KSL 5 News at 10.
There's not really a time for minutes.
When seconds matter.
You saw shooting where?
At Tunesville High.
Utah's response is critical. Now, using newly accessed data and recordings, the KSL investigators examine a school's lockdown response.
Are we in a lockdown or a lockout?
What lessons can your school learn?
Lockdown protocols typically fail very badly.
Shots fired. Lessons in the lockdown. Tonight on KSL 5 News at 10.
Here's what happens when you get brand new custom vinyl windows from Advanced Window Products. All of a sudden, your house has more curb appeal. Your home is more secure. Your heating and air conditioning bills tumble, and you have a local company in business 37 years standing behind their work for life. But that's not all. Since they build your custom windows at their facility in Salt Lake, there's no middleman markup. So you can save money on the highest quality windows on the market. Argon-filled double-pane glass. Insulation within the vinyl framing. Top of the line, built to spec. They will create magnificent bow windows, doggy doors cut into the glass. Any color, it's all custom, all installed by their team, and every window is guaranteed for life. Rocky Mountain and Dominion offer rebates. Advanced Windows offers 60-month, 0% financing, and right now, save $2,000 on 10 windows or more. So save now, pay later. Call Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
Here at KSL News Radio, we think it's time to get summer started. Join us Saturday, May 20th for the first annual KSL Barbecue Cook-Off, put on by Barbecue Pit Stop and SCA Competition. It's the best of the West competing for cash, prizes, and most importantly, bragging rights. There's local celebrity competitors, music, and lots of fun activities. Saturday, May 20th at the Triad Center. Brought to you by Camp Chef, Sheridan's Home and Patio, and KSL News Radio. Let's get to barbecuing.
With our roots in northern Utah, Holy Cross Hospital has a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. Find us at 5 Holy Cross Hospital locations and more than 45 clinics along the Wasatch Front. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
At Holy Cross Hospital, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and equally honored to care for northern Utah's vibrant communities. Find us at 5 Holy Cross Hospital locations and more than 45 clinics along the Wasatch Front. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, a vocal minority in St. George have hijacked so many city council meetings, the mayor has now disallowed public comments at future meetings. Second, a group of lawmakers, including Utah Representative Blake Moore, is hoping to bring a COVID-19 era provision back that allowed taxpayers to reduce their tax bill by donating to charity. Third, Montana's governor says he signed a statewide sweeping ban on the use of TikTok as a way to protect residents from the Chinese. Right now it's 75 degrees and partly sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
While the president is overseas, Washington, of course, is still working to work through a solution to the debt ceiling, along with some reforms in terms of spending. And often that is where things kind of fall apart, is when it comes to prioritizing or cutting or refining our spending. And until we're really willing to have that conversation, we do have to recognize that we're going to have debt ceiling trauma and drama forever and ever. It is the absolute predictability of consequences. And it's really interesting. Today, Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma released a video talking about something he does every year. This year, he centered it around places where the federal government dropped the ball in terms of wasteful spending or deficit spending. And this is actually a legacy piece that actually began with Senator Tom Coburn from Oklahoma, who passed away a few years ago in 2020. And Senator Coburn was actually known in the Senate as Dr. No. And he was Dr. No because he just wouldn't vote for bills that had frivolous, ridiculous, unrelated, unsustainable spending. He just wouldn't do it on principle. And he knew that you can justify just about anything. And any of you who have bought a big screen TV or gone on a vacation you couldn't afford, it's easy to justify. And we'll make it up on the back end, and things will be all right. Collusion is often the problem, not conflict in our nation's capital. So Senator Lankford has released this year's edition, and this is an important conversation. So I just want you to get a sense of some of the things that when people talk about we need to rein in deficit spending, it's not just saying we have to cut the military or cut Social Security. All of those need to be prioritized and streamlined to make sure there's no waste, fraud, or abuse. But there are a lot of things that you really got to scratch your head and say, should the taxpayers really be paying for that? So Senator Lankford first talks through the debt ceiling talks and how all of this connects.
The first debt ceiling was enacted in 1917 through the Second Liberty Bond Act. In 1939, Congress created the first aggregate debt limit for all government debt, which at that time, if you can believe it, was about $45 billion total. Many times in the past 100 years, Congress has added to the debt limit some ways to reduce spending or to address the total debt, but they've made changes in addition to the debt ceiling. But this time, President Biden is telling America we need to raise the debt ceiling without discussing any way to cut the spending.
All right. And then Senator Lankford went on to give us a look at what lies ahead, a little preview of coming attractions if we don't do anything.
Over the next 10 years, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that interest payments on our debt will total $10.5 trillion if nothing changes. And that's just the interest payments, $10.5 trillion. Some of those interest payments will go outside the United States to countries like China who have purchased our debt. And currently, this may not come as a great shock to many of you, Congress has no workable plan to address it. Not one.
So there aren't any plans. One of the interesting things that Senator Lankford went through, and he's done this on several news outlets today, but he talked just about some of the things that are being funded, and some of them are really small, but it's still kind of odd. One example that the senator gave was that American taxpayers paid for a study on German butterflies conducted by a Swedish scientist. Now, that's not to say that studying German butterflies is a bad thing, nor is it bad that a Swedish scientist did the work. But there is a question in there, at least I have a question, of should all of us as taxpayers in the United States of America be paying for a study of German butterflies by a Swedish scientist? I don't know. I'd love to see the rationale and the reasoning of how that came about. Who signed off on that? How did that get into the committee hearing? Where was it placed in the document of the budget? Or was it buried somewhere and just shoved on through? And there's a whole host of things like that, of things that we're paying for that don't even have anything to do with the country or our national security or even our great science. And so the bigger question for me is not should we be questioning spending, some spending. We should be questioning all of the spending. I think we all agree. I think we all agree that government has a role. It has an important role on a whole host of things. And we're willing to pay for that. The thing that I think we get glossed over is what we're paying for. Because I think in the United States of America, if we're going to spend money on something, we better do it the very best. And we better make sure there's no waste, fraud, or abuse of the funds, because those are the people's funds. It's the people's money, not the government. And then we should check it for results. And so to me, it's not about, well, you can't question Social Security. Yeah, we should question Social Security. And we should make sure that if that's the program we're going to do, we better do it exceptionally well. And it's not that we shouldn't look at military spending. Absolutely, we should look at military spending. And we should make sure there's no waste, fraud, or abuse, and make sure we're doing things that are actually making us more safe and more secure. And you can pick any other agency. 87 different agencies touch people who are dealing with poverty in one way or another. Is that most effective, most efficient? It better be. Because if I'm paying my taxpayer money for it, I want it to be the best there is. And I want it to produce results that are making a difference for those who are receiving the benefit. And so to me, that's the whole key to this thing is can we get to those? Can we prioritize all of those things that actually matter? And that's the difficult component to all of this. And I think Senator Langford is doing a great thing. Do we need $4 million for a wine walking trail? Do we need $1 million into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum in Cleveland? There's just all kinds of things. Bob Dylan Center didn't take a penny in federal money. They did it just fine. So it's more about prioritization and leadership. Whenever people tell me there's a money problem, and whether it's we don't have enough money or we need to raise some money or we're over budget, my answer to any of those money problems is it's a leadership problem. Because if you need to raise some money, that's just a leadership thing. If someone creates the vision, the money will show up. If you're overspending or you're over budget, that's a leadership thing. Someone needs to go in and prioritize what is the most important and what needs to be shifted somewhere else. And so it's a different kind of conversation. If you want to have some fun, go check out Senator James Langford from Oklahoma. Always very entertaining in terms of some of those things, but it's also quite sad in terms of what we are spending some of our taxpayer money on. And to me, that has to be part of any conversation around a debt ceiling and about real reform. All right, we'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. Much more Inside Sources coming up next. Stay with us on KSL News Radio.
Good afternoon. It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour, a proposed rule from the Biden administration about how public lands can be used has some of Utah's state lawmakers and our federal delegation sounding the alarm. KSL News Radio's Lindsay Eretz explains.
This rule change would essentially add conservation to the list of approved uses for public lands. State lawmakers like Phil Lyman, though, are issuing a letter telling the BLM they're not okay with this.
It means that they can essentially have no use and call it a use. And for those people that make their living, grazing or mining or using public lands, recreation, could lose that opportunity in Utah.
Lyman argues this is just the latest move by the head of the BLM to gain control.
A former eco-terrorist who is the director of the BLM, Tracy Stone Manning, and a long history of her efforts to shut down use.
Utah's federal delegation also backing a bill to block this. The BLM says the new category is needed for protection and restoration. Lindsay Eretz, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. GM is recalling over 666,000 crossover SUVs. ABC's Alex Stone explains why.
Owners of 2020 to 2023 Chevrolet Equinox models and GMC Terrains may not be able to install child seats using the latch anchor bars, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The agency says excessive powder coating on the bars could make them too big for child seats to latch to them. Dealers will inspect and replace the rear seat latch bars if needed. In the meantime, the Highway Traffic Safety Administration says affected owners of those SUVs should install child seats using seat belts to anchor them in. Alex Stone, EBC News.
Your money at this moment. The Dow is in the red, 3 points. The S&P has gained 24 points, and the NASDAQ has gained 147 points. Coming up, it's a beautiful day out there. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
People running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
I found, Tim, that one of the hardest things about being a mom is just deciding what to cook for dinner every night.
I know.
Which is part of why I'm so excited to tell everybody about Beehive Meals.
It is a Utah company, and at some point we're going to have to tell the story of the Jacksons and how they actually got this going in 2019. But if you've been struggling with having tacos one night and spaghetti another night, open up your world for dinner with things like Mongolian beef stir fry or Parmesan honey pork roast.
Your family dinner has just never been easier than it is with these. They're pre-assembled freezer meals. I put it in the crock pot. I set it for how long it needs to go. It stays warm after that. And that way, if the family can't all eat together, if one person has basketball and another, it's just warm for whenever they're ready.
And by the way, less than $3.50 per serving. You couldn't go out to the store or out to dinner, certainly on your own, for that price.
You're absolutely right, Tim. I couldn't buy the ingredients for any less.
Start it for your family right now. Go to beehivemeals.com.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool. Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
At aimyourdigital.com, we'll help you target the right audience, build your leads, and crush your quota. Take your business to the next level. Our digital marketing strategies help grow awareness of your product or service, all while building trust in your business. Our approach involves leveraging multiple tools and strategies to deliver exceptional results that are customized to your unique business needs. Don't wait to run out of sales leads. Keep your business growing. Get started with aimyourdigital.com today.
Coping 19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
With everything going on, there may be times you feel like you can't handle it all. Journaling, meditating, and talking with friends and family can help you feel more grounded and better able to cope. Your kids are also going through a lot of new experiences, and simply talking with them about their feelings can be quite powerful.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
Pretty quiet on the Valley freeways, unless you're traveling southbound I-15 going from Utah into Juab County, and that is where we have construction delays in Mona and Nephi. The Utah Symphony's Deer Valley Music Festival in Park City features Ben Folds, Leanne Rimes, the Beach Boys, and more. June 30th through August 4th in Park City at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, nice and mild so far today, and that's going to continue until later this afternoon, evening, where we may have some scattered thunderstorms. But the weekend in the 80s with sunny skies. Right now it's 75 degrees and sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, yesterday, the president of Ecuador, Guillermo Lasso, pushed the self-destruct button on the country's government. So fascinating. It's called the mutual death option. It's actually part of their constitution. So the General Assembly of Ecuador was investigating the president on embezzlement allegations, and they had begun impeachment proceedings to remove him from office. So President Lasso accused the National Assembly of focusing on destabilizing the government, and so he pushes the button. And what it does is it dissolves everything, and there is a 90-day window where they have to have a snap election for everybody, for the National Assembly, for the president. It is a really interesting thing to consider. I'm not sure how it would work here in the U.S., but I want to play that out just a little bit. To get a better understanding, though, of how this is taking place in Ecuador and what's going on in other South American countries where there is some destabilization, we had the opportunity, Inside Sources, to sit down with Dr. Diego Jose Romero. He is a postdoctoral research associate at the University of Pennsylvania's DevLab. And Dr. Romero recounted what has led up to the events of what these amazing things that just took place in Ecuador this week.
From his perspective and from the perspective of his party, the political trial that he was being put through in Congress was just that, basically a political show. In reality, however, Congress was trying to impeach him for embezzlement and for preventing a contract between a public oil company and a private oil transportation company to go through. So there was, an accusation of embezzlement and of bribery for which he was going to be impeached. Now, to prevent this from happening to himself, he decided to use this particular article in the Constitution of Ecuador that allows the sitting president to dissolve the Congress, to dissolve the National Assembly, but at the same time also ends his or her term in office. And this is called muerte cruzada, which can be translated into mutual death. And what this article does is basically it calls for early elections. And then whoever wins these elections is going to serve for the remaining of the period for both Congress and for the presidency.
That is such an interesting concept. So we're going to stay with that. And he talked about the National Assembly. Now that that's dissolved, the President Lasso believes that he can govern for this interim period and bring some stability to the country.
He will be able to govern by decree for the remaining of his time in office until the moment in which he most likely loses the elections, because he's likely to lose the elections. Now, he alleges that he will be able to bring stability to Ecuador because there's not going to be opposition in Congress that is going to prevent him from doing the policies that he wants to enact. Now, the problem with this particular point is actually twofold. First of all, the past 2 years that he has been in office have been disastrous for Ecuador. There has been a wave of crime that is, unrivaled in the region. At this point, the murder rate is much higher than, the murder rate of Mexico, for example. And cities like Guayaquil are now some of the most dangerous cities in Latin America. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, poverty has grown, and he has not been able to manage things like the COVID-19 pandemic correctly. So, with that in mind, he does have the support of the military for the remaining of his period, but he has the opposition of both basically every political movement in the country and from the indigenous peoples of the country as well.
So this is so interesting. I'm sure you were not thinking about this when you got out of bed this morning, what's happening in Ecuador. But this is really important, and how this plays out is just going to be such an interesting thing to look at. Dr. Romero pointed out to us that even though this move has been criticized, again, this self-destruct button that ends and dissolves the National Assembly, also puts an end to his time as president, and then it's the snap election over a 90-day window. And so even though a lot of people have criticized this, obviously there's a lot of downside risk when one person could make decisions, even if it's just for a short period. But Dr. Romero also pointed out that the party opposition might actually have a lot to gain from this process.
Now, interestingly, the left, specifically the left that is backed or led by the ex-president Rafael Correa, but also the indigenous movements, are criticizing his decision as a dictatorial move, but at the same time are not criticizing the fact that he is calling for this article to be enacted. And the reason is that they are actually to be the most benefited political groups from the fact that Guillermo Lasso is calling early elections. So Rafael Correa is likely, or actually his party is likely to field the next president of Ecuador based on the fact that, his force is actually the most popular force in the country right now. And it's actually the most important party within Congress as well.
So, although the President Lasso of Ecuador has the support of the military, to be sure, it seems like all the political parties across the spectrum are against him. There's also another component. The judicial system could also step in and undermine this call to enact this mutual death option.
The Constitutional Court can revise this decision, and actually parties within the opposition are calling attention to the fact that the president can only call for this article to be enacted in cases where there is a proper threat to the institutionality of the country. And according to many observers and according to the opposition, or some parties in the opposition, specifically the conservative section of the opposition, the current situation doesn't necessarily match the conditions that the Constitution spells for this article to be called for. So it remains to be seen what the Constitutional Court will do about it.
I just think this is such an interesting thing in terms of what the court will do there in Ecuador, whether this really is something that rises to the level where this mutual death option of dissolving the National Assembly, as well as the president, it's a call for a snap election, whether the challenges within the country actually rise to that level that he can actually enact that. So the courts in Ecuador will have to decide that component to it. But I do think this is just an interesting thing. Think about that here in the United States. We'll just play the what-if game for a moment. So what if we had the mutual destruction button where a president could hit the button and dissolve the House and the Senate for 90 days, basically, while there is an election for everybody. So all the members of Congress would be up for election, as well as the president being up for election. And that would be to fulfill the remainder of the term. The tricky part, of course, is that 90-day window. If a president can just act on his own or her own during that window, that might be problematic. But what would happen? Just think of it just from a high level. Don't overthink it. But just imagine on a moment like this, where we're dealing with some pretty high stakes in terms of debt ceiling and deficit spending. And what if the president said, let's see what the American people really want? And you push the mutually assured destruction button, and instantly every member of Congress and every member of the Senate and the president is all up for election in a 90-day window. Not a 2-year election cycle, not a 4-year election cycle, just 90 days. Make your case to the American people. You can either maintain your job or not. It's an interesting thing to think about. I don't know that it works in practicality, but, man, we should at least be thinking about that. What would happen? What would you do if there was a snap election? And every level. If a member of the House, would you vote him back? Would you get somebody new? The presidency? It's an interesting thing to look at. I want to close out this segment with this last thought from Dr. Romero, because this is a little broader in terms of South America in general and Latin America. The trend has been younger leaders, less experienced leaders, a little more authoritarian leaders, I would say. And here's what Dr. Romero had to share on that.
One thing that I think is very interesting is to see that there is a very interesting wave of popular discontent across all of Latin America that is likely to yield not necessarily a move to the left or a move to the right, but a move towards less experienced semi-authoritarian leaders. And this, the case of Bukele is a really good example. Bukele has been actually really a popular figure throughout Latin America, despite the fact that he's violating human rights at every turn possible in El Salvador. But it's very interesting to see how people from Ecuador, for example, were calling for Ecuador to have a president like Nayib Bukele during the past 2 years when Guillermo Lasso was not able to do anything about violence.
Big thanks to Dr. Diego Jose Romero, a postdoctoral research associate at the University of Pennsylvania's Dev Lab, and some really great perspective there. Always interesting when we complain about everything we have going wrong or the challenges we have in government here in the United States. You don't have to look very far to say, well, that's an interesting thing going on somewhere else. And I think we'll probably stick with what we've got. But very fascinating discussion there, to be sure. All right, we'll go ahead and step aside for a quick break. When we come back, Jeremy Cunningham's going to join us for a crucial conversation about Alzheimer's, a new Alzheimer's drug. Much hope, much promise. We'll talk about that coming up next. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Let the negotiations begin.
I'm confident that we'll get the agreement on the budget, that America will not default. We pay our bills.
The President and House Republicans begin high-stakes discussions of America's borrowing and our massive debt. Does anything change?
If we do nothing, we will pay more in interest in the next 10 years than we paid in the last 83.
Get updates each morning and talk during the day with Dave and Dejanovic at 9 and Boyd Matheson at 1 on KSL News Radio.
Finding great people to hire is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's pretty difficult, right? Well, ZipRecruiter has mastered finding a needle in a haystack, so they take it to the next level. They make hiring so simple that it's like finding a needle in a needle stack. And that's why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Here's what it's like to use ZipRecruiter. They have so many qualified candidates that it's easier to find the right ones for your roles. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's a lot of needles. So how do they do it? ZipRecruiter's powerful technology sends you candidates who are a great match for your job, and you can even invite your top choices to apply. So if you want less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Troy, I am pumped for this massive grand opening at the new American Fork Bish's RV.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a wild one.
The deals are unreal, the food is free, and the fun is all day?
Yep. Clear your calendar, people. Come in May 15th through the 20th for 6 full days of epic deals. Fun for the family and free meals on Friday and Saturday from 11 to 2.
RV deals like $199 per month OAC for a new bunkhouse RV? Are you kidding me?
Plus, tour the hottest new travel trailers from GoPlay. High quality at an undeniable value. Available only at Bish's.
Oh, and did we mention every remaining 2022 is priced to move with no reasonable offer refused?
And we're hooking you up with 90 days no payments on approved credit for 3 months of all play and no pay.
Got a trade? We're giving max trade-in value for your current RV.
Don't miss this sale. Only May 15th through the 20th at Bish's RV in American Fork.
Previously Stewart's RV. Bish's RV, where memories begin.
SDK number 69455 and 69454. Subject to prior sale. Dealer number A22B. See dealer for details.
Expand your business capabilities as you expand your business with Mountain America. From part-time entrepreneur to global enterprise, choose a credit union that can keep up with your growing company, no matter the size. Visit macu.com/business to explore our array of business banking, lending, and service solutions and experience the attentive, personalized service of a local credit union. Mountain America can handle all your business needs. Loans on approved credit. Membership required based on eligibility.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio is your window to the outside world, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio, or listen on the KSL News Radio app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, a proposed rule from the Biden administration about how public lands can be used has some of Utah's state lawmakers panicking. Second, GM is recalling 2020 to 2023 crossover SUVs because owners may not be able to install child seats. Third, experts say the world could have its hottest year on record by 2027. Right now it's 75 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. Alzheimer's, of course, is a terrible disease that affects many around the world. Through pioneering science and research, treatments are being developed to combat the disease, and we're learning more about that all the time. And then, of course, we get to the next part of the equation. Great breakthrough, and then it becomes access to treatment, especially new treatments of Alzheimer's. They're constantly getting tied up in red tape and bureaucratic this and that, and often it leaves those who need it on the outside looking in. We're really thrilled to have Jeremy Cunningham, Public Policy Director for the Utah chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Jeremy, great to have you in studio today.
Thanks so much, Boyd.
So first, just give us a sense of where are we as a nation as it relates to Alzheimer's. We know the devastation that it caused, the long goodbye, and all that goes with it in terms of care and needs. And but give us a snapshot. What does that look like in the country?
It's the fastest growing disease in the United States. It robs a family of their loved one, not once, but twice. Yeah. It's called the disease of the long goodbye. Mm-hmm. There has been some incredible breakthroughs. We now have 2 drugs and a third coming out. The drug manufacturer Lilly announced 2 weeks ago that their drug is coming out, and it is a phenomenal drug. Mm. It's got an effective rate of 35 to 40% effective when it is diagnosed and when people start, depending on when people start taking it.
Yeah, so important. And so those kind of breakthroughs are so hopeful. It's like, wow, some things that could really make a difference in quality of life and family relations.
It's the first time in the history of Alzheimer's that we've ever had an effective drug to treat it. Mm. And we're going into a new time period. You know, when you think of HIV and cancer and other diseases, this is groundbreaking. This is life-changing, groundbreaking. I never thought we'd see a therapy for Alzheimer's. Yeah. And so, that's why it is so important that we make these drugs available to the general public.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Access is, doesn't matter how good the drug is, if you don't have access to it, if it's out of reach, it's out of sight.
Correct. The FDA has approved these drugs that are amyloid plaque fighting drugs. Amyloid plaque is the buildup on the brain that causes Alzheimer's and causes tangles and webs on the brain that will stop the cognitive function. And many people assume Alzheimer's with memory loss and things, but it's so much more than just that. So the FDA has approved these drugs, and the Veterans Administration, Health Services Administration, has approved these drugs treatments for the VA. Mm. First time in the history of CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, they are refusing this classification of drugs to be used.
Okay, so break that down for us. This is where my blood pressure starts to go up. As you look at that access, non-access, we were actually talking just before we came on air. You said the VA has approved this, so a veteran could have access,
but his wife couldn't. Depending on if she had TRICARE, she could get it, but depending on the insurance and things, and if she had Medicare, she would not be eligible.
Yeah. There's been a lot of activity on this in congressional hearings. I know you've participated in many of those. Give us a sense of what is the conversation in Washington when you lay it out on the table and say, here's the breakthrough, here's the benefits.
We have had bipartisan support. We've had hundreds between the senators and congressmen. We've had hundreds of co-signers on this piece of legislation and letters supporting this. We've had 26 states, the attorney generals for 26 states. Our own Sean Reyes has supported it. Congressman Blake Moore, who sits on the Ways and Means, has actually questioned our Health and Human Services Secretary. And it's a moving target. And people say, well, do you really know the answer? No, we do not, because it is a moving target. And we see it as complete government overreach, that an individual should have the opportunity to find out if these drugs will work for them or work for their family members.
Yeah, so important. And I always talk about the Flat Forehead Society back there in D.C., where you come out of some of those hearings and you hear the data, you hear the experts talk about the difference it could make, and even the negative sides of it. You can go through all of that, and then you still walk away thinking, now why are we not doing this?
Well, CMS has thrown up the cost of the drug Well, sure. The cost of the drug is drugs are $25,000 a year if a person has to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
Our own Senator Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is a senator. John Curtis is a congressman. Chris Stewart, Blake Moore have all questioned the thinking and legality of not providing these drugs.
Yeah.
Because once CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, approves these drugs, it will drive down the cost because insurance companies will start to cover these things.
Right.
Medicare will cover these things. It will drive down the cost.
So what should we be looking for next? What's kind of the state of play now in terms of what are you working towards? What are you trying to lean on or leverage next?
So we are as an international organization and national organization asking for people to get involved. There is a national petition. We're asking that the administrator for Medicare, Medicaid, reevaluate their decision.
Yeah.
And they said, well, if the FDA approves this in July, a full approval, we'll set up a registry. Well, they haven't even set up the criteria for the registry by July 6th. It has to be set up, and they haven't even reviewed or set up the criteria for the registry. And typically, a Democratic administration is known for social services and giving too much to social services. Here we have a situation where this administration, the Health and Human Services Secretary and administrator for Medicare, Medicaid are blocking care.
Yeah.
We've never seen anything like this.
That is one of those. The moving target is the worst because they finally say, "Okay, we think you may have something, and so we'll set up a way for it to be registered. And if you go through that criteria, and then it takes 3 years to have them decide what the criteria is, and then another year to actually file it and have it reviewed, and that slow walk."
People are going to die.
Yeah, that slow walk is going to lead to more slow goodbyes.
Over 2,000 people a day fall out of the criteria for being eligible for these drugs. And we see it as government overreach. We see it as disease discrimination and possibly age discrimination.
Yeah. Well, this is a crucial conversation. We always talk on this show, and a lot of times you ask me, what can I do? This is one of those what can you do moments. You can get on the petition. You can lean into the conversation.
Reach out to your congressman. Reach out to the Alzheimer's Association.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to keep that conversation going because a slow walk from the government should not lead to a slow goodbye by way of Alzheimer's. Jeremy Cunningham, Public Policy Director for the Utah chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
That'll wrap up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. We've got a big hour number 2 coming up next. We'll start off with an interview with Eboo Patel, a fascinating discussion about faith in America and faith in America. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. Border officials say 6 people on the FBI's terror watch list were apprehended at the border last weekend. News Nation correspondent Allie Bradley is in Yuma, Arizona, and she says Border Patrol is using facial recognition software because some immigrants have been discarding documents and scratching their names and photos off of their documents.
Something flags in the system where it might insinuate that they have a terrorist tie. That person then gets handed over to the FBI, and the FBI takes it from there.
Bradley says some people on the watch list are getting caught at the border, which is raising questions about how many are getting through. Experts say the world could have its hottest year on record by 2027. And KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson says this means extreme summers and winters could become more normal in the Beehive State.
Could it become more
increasingly common? I'd say yes. That's one of the side effects to climate change is the jet stream and the overall large-scale patterns start to behave a little erratic.
Matt says he wouldn't be surprised if the world does have its hottest year soon, as Salt Lake has been seeing records of its own over the last couple of summers. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Chatbots powered by artificial intelligence are now showing up on smaller screens. ABC's Mike Dabuski reports.
OpenAI has announced that its chatbot, ChatGPT, will now be available as an app. The company says in addition to communicating with the bot via text, users can now also talk to it through a speech recognition system. The app is free to use and is rolling out to iPhone users now. OpenAI says it'll be coming to Android users soon. Earlier this week, the company's CEO Sam Altman appeared on Capitol Hill, saying in part the technology could cause significant harm if not regulated. Mike Dabuski, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, a little bit of an uptick on the Dow. It's in the green, 115 points. The S&P has gained 39 points, and the NASDAQ is up 188 points. Coming up, a few more thunderstorms. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:02.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
I found, Tim, that one of the hardest things about being a mom is just deciding what to cook for dinner every night.
I know.
Which is part of why I'm so excited to tell everybody about Beehive Meals.
It is a Utah company, and at some point we're going to have to tell the story of the Jacksons and how they actually got this going in 2019. But if you've been struggling with having tacos one night and spaghetti another night, open up your world for dinner with things like Mongolian beef stir-fry or Parmesan honey pork roast.
Your family dinner has just never been easier than it is with these. They're pre-assembled freezer meals. I put it in the crock pot. I set it for how long it needs to go. It stays warm after that. And that way, if the family can't all eat together, if one person has basketball and another, it's just warm for whenever they're ready.
And by the way, less than $3.50 per serving. You couldn't go out to the store or out to dinner, certainly on your own, for that price.
You're absolutely right, Tim. I couldn't buy the ingredients for any less.
Start it for your family right now. Go to beehivemeals.com.
Finding great people to hire is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's pretty difficult, right? Well, ZipRecruiter has mastered finding a needle in a haystack, so they take it to the next level. They make hiring so simple that it's like finding a needle in a needle stack. And that's why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Here's what it's like to use ZipRecruiter. They have so many qualified candidates that it's easier to find the right ones for your roles. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's a lot of needles. So how do they do it? ZipRecruiter's powerful technology sends you candidates who are a great match for your job, and you can even invite your top choices to apply. So if you want less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
If you've got a honey-do list with electrical, plumbing, heating, or air conditioning projects on it, Any Hour Services can help. Call Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. AnyHourServices.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
Some heavy and slow traffic northbound I-15 from about 3500 south to the 6 south exit. A crash downtown 3rd west, 500 south. A surface street crash at 6200 south, 5700 west. The expert cataract surgeons at Moran Eye Center can help you see the world in vibrant clarity with state-of-the-art cataract care customized for your lifestyle. MoranEyeCenter.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather this afternoon and evening. There is a chance for some scattered thunderstorms, but those will clear up tomorrow and get nice and warm for the weekend with sunny skies and highs in the 80s. Right now it's 76 degrees and partly sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, headlines declared declining faith and increasing secularization in the country. Many say America has lost its edge and is doomed to decline. But could faith in the future of America begin with faith in the future of America? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, we are thrilled to have joining us on the program today Eboo Patel. Eboo is the founder and president of Interfaith America. And Eboo's one who believes that religious diversity is an essential and even an inspiring dimension of American democracy. And how we have these conversations in the public square, I think, is so important. Eboo's book, if you haven't picked it up, it's out new in paperback now, talking about We Need to Build. Field Notes for Diverse Democracy. And I think this is one of those benchmark books of everyone needs to understand this. It doesn't matter where you fall on the spectrum politically or in your faith tradition or in your religion. These are conversations that we need to have and things that we need to value. And Eboo, welcome to Inside Sources.
Boyd, I'm thrilled to be with you. Thank you for taking the book seriously. And thank you for noting that We Need to Build is for everybody, because in America, we have benefited from the civic institutions that other people have built, and that means we have a responsibility to build for future generations.
Yeah, so give us some of the genesis story in terms of your organization, Interfaith America, and ultimately how that leads to a book, a landmark book, in my opinion, in terms of how do we go about that building process.
So the United States is the most religiously diverse nation in human history, the most religiously devout nation in the Western Hemisphere, and the world's first attempt at religiously diverse democracy. So the first thing we should realize is that we're doing something pretty new and special here. There has never been a time that more people from more different religions have gathered in a single political entity than in the United States of America. So that's number one. Number two, religion plays an enormously powerful and I would say positive role in American civic life and in our national imagination. And here's how I would describe that. The largest providers of social services after the federal government in the United States are groups like Catholic Charities and the Salvation Army. I would imagine the largest providers of social services where you're based in Utah would include the LDS Church. In our national imagination, we have metaphors for our country like City on a Hill, Almost Chosen People, Better Angels of Our Nature, Cathedral of Humanity. All of these things, of course, are religious in nature. So as our nation becomes more religiously diverse, and right now there are as many Muslims and Buddhists in the United States as there are ELCA Lutherans. That was not the case at the founding in 1776. Right? It's this growing diversity. I think the big question is faith going to continue to be a source of inspiration for positive civic institutions, social services, higher education, healthcare, and can faith be a bridge of cooperation? Those are the big questions that I ask and address in my book.
It's so powerful, and we've been having this discussion over the past week. I came across a speech that former HHS Secretary Mike Leavitt, who, of course, was also the governor here in the state of Utah, at a meeting in the World Trade Center talking about the future. And he had all of these economists, world-renowned economists and futurists, and they were going through what does it look like 15 years out? And what's going to really be driving things. And when it came to Governor Leavitt, he said, I think it's going to be about the economics of goodness. And he talked about just what you laid out, social capital, all that happens with faith in the public square and all the good that's done. And so he laid out this idea of imagine, what a community or a state or a nation could do if they didn't have to spend money on prisons and foster care and all of these other things because of the goodness. And one economist jumped up and said, you're trying to turn this into a religious conversation. And there was like this moment of silence. And one of the other economists jumps up and says, no, he's right. And I'm an atheist. And then he said, this is all about goodness and the absolute predictability of consequences. And I thought it was such an interesting way. And then all the building that could come out of that. So I wanted to get your take on that, Eboo, in terms of that building. How do we have to reframe or reset to the economics of goodness or to the way that you're talking about in terms of building?
we all benefit from the goodness that other people have built over generations. If there's a little league in your town, somebody built that and your kid participates in it. If there is a public library in your town, somebody built that and you benefit from it. And very often, the people who have built things were inspired by faith. So, for example, in Indianapolis, the public library system was built largely by people involved in Second Presbyterian Church. So even the institutions in our nation that were not specifically founded by faith communities, and by the way, there are lots of those, 230 Catholic colleges and universities, 120 Methodist colleges and universities, such as USC, Syracuse, Emory, 75 Presbyterian colleges and universities. The list goes on of the number of institutions specifically founded by faith communities. But even institutions like the public library in Indianapolis were largely built by people who were part of social capital networks from faith communities and inspired by their faith. And I think the thing that I find most powerful about this is every one of those institutions is for everybody. USC is not just for Methodists. Notre Dame is not just for Catholics. The Inner City Muslim Action Network does not just serve Muslims. And so we have a civil society built by people inspired by their particular faith that serves people of all faiths and philosophies. And that is at the heart of America's diverse democracy. It is the very weave of our civic fabric. And in my book, We Need to Build, and in my organization, Interfaith America, we honor that. We strengthen that. We illuminate it. We ask the question, what does it mean for the current generation who has benefited so much from what people have built in the past to build for the future?
I know one of the things that you talk about in your book is this idea and taking on the idea of where young people are, where the world is becoming more secular. Give us a sense of what you're seeing and what you're sensing as you have conversations around the country in terms of where are the young people really?
So I'll tell you something. One of the things we are very clear about at Interfaith America is people have a right to their identity. Whether you're a Zoroastrian or an atheist or LDS or Sufi or Salafi, you have a right to your identity. And I welcome the positive goodness from all identities, right? So that's the first thing that I want to say. I'm much less bothered by by what your particular faith or philosophy is, and I'm much more concerned with whether you interpret it as a source of inspiration to serve others and a bridge of cooperation, or whether you interpret it as a barrier of division. Okay. Having said that, I do think that it's consequential that there are fewer and fewer people participating in faith communities, fewer and fewer people going to church, right? That doesn't say much at this point about people's personal spiritualities. Lots of Americans, pray or say they believe in God, but fewer and fewer are going to church. And I think that does have a really important impact on our civil society. Again, back to the example of the public library system in Indianapolis. The way that happens is not 100 people in their rooms alone with their personal spirituality, as important as that might be for those individuals. It happens because people show up to church every Sunday, and they do it based on a certain set of values and principles, and I know that's very important to this radio show. And then they ask the question, what can we build based on those values and principles? So amongst the most important values that every faith shares, if you're a Muslim or a Mormon, you believe in hospitality, you believe in cooperation, you believe in compassion, you believe in enrichment of others. And you then ask the question, how do we build an institution that embodies those values? And that's where you get things like the Catholic hospital system. That's where you get things like the public library system in Indianapolis. It's people showing up in faith communities on a regular basis, acting on their values in community with others, and building institutions.
We're going to stay with the conversation just a little bit longer, looking at this whole idea of whether you are a person of faith or of no faith. There is a space in the future of America for faith, and I think actually having that faith in the future of America starts with faith being part of the future of America. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. This year's flood watch is affecting roads.
The water is not quite lapping over the bridge that I'm standing on, but getting very close.
And it's affecting homes.
The whole RV park was pretty much underwater.
Between now and the end of the month, we've got to get this right. Listen for updates 2, 3, 4 times a day. Flood watch on KSL News Radio.
Here's what happens when you get brand new custom vinyl windows from Advanced Window Products. All of a sudden, your house has more curb appeal. Your home is more secure. Your heating and air conditioning bills tumble, and you have a local company in business 37 years standing behind their work for life. But that's not all. Since they build your custom windows at their facility in Salt Lake, there's no middleman markup. So you can save money on the highest quality windows on the market. Argon-filled double-pane glass. Insulation within the vinyl framing. Top of the line, built to spec. They will create magnificent bow windows, doggy doors cut into the glass. Any color, it's all custom, all installed by their team, and every window is guaranteed for life. Rocky Mountain and Dominion offer rebates. Advanced Windows offer 60-month 0% financing, and right now, save $2,000 on 10 windows or more. So save now, pay later. Call Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
Tonight, Law & Order Thursday saves the best for last with a can't-miss season finale event. First on Law & Order, McCoy faces his greatest challenge yet, his own daughter, played by Sam Waterston's real-life daughter. How cool is that? Then in a crossover event, Benson and Stegler join forces to take down a deadly murder-for-hire website. The Law & Order Thursday season finale event, tonight on NBC.
Then on KSL 5 News at 10.
There's not really a time for minutes.
When seconds matter.
You saw shooting where?
At Tunesville High.
Utah's response is critical. Now, using newly accessed data and recordings, the KSL investigators examine a school's lockdown response.
Are we in a lockdown or a lockout?
What lessons can your school learn?
Lockdown protocols typically fail very badly.
Shots fired. Lessons in the lockdown. Tonight on KSL 5 News at 10.
Interest rates keep rising, but don't worry, we'll cut them back down to size. Hi there, I'm Josh Osborne with Volkswagen Southtown, and during our rate cut sale, we're cutting rates in half.
Get 3.9 for 5 years at Volkswagen Southtown on any new car, and we have as low as 1.9 on used cars. Get the car you really want, like the Jetta, Tiguan, Taos, Atlas, or ID4 EV.
Save thousands in interest at Volkswagen Southtown, Utah's #1 Volkswagen dealer. Visit VWSouthtown.com.
Claim since 2022. Financing through VCI on select models OAC. See dealer for details.
The roar of our engines, the pump of our heartbeats, the pedal to our metal, the sparks that ignite us, the pistons that push us, the passions that drive us. From the feelings that move us to the places that pull us on the roads that unite us. With nearly 6,000 stores and over 17,000 auto care centers, Napa has America's largest network of parts and care, here to keep you firing on all cylinders.
It's been a rough winter for sure, but visitors are flocking to Box Elder County. Our feathered visitors, that is. Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge is busy hosting swans to swallows and geese to grebes. This spring migration, it's in full swing, and all that's missing is you. Box Elder County, it really is for the birds. Just a short 60 minutes north of Salt Lake, Box Elder County is the perfect place to make memories and celebrate spring. Along with spending time with our feathered friends, you'll experience amazing restaurants and unique shopping. Why not come take a soak in the Crystal Hot Springs, home to the highest mineral content of any natural hot springs in the world, and just let winter melt away as you relax and rejuvenate. Take in a theater performance at one of the live theaters or visit one of the fine museums. Visitors really are chirping all about Box Elder County. Check out boxeldercounty.com and see why Box Elder County is for the birds. That's boxeldercounty.com.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
If you're just joining us, we're really thrilled to have Eboo Patel joining with us. He's the founder and president of Interfaith America, and also really important, the paperback version of his book, We Need to Build, Field Notes for Diverse Democracy, is out. And it is I love the fact that it's field notes, because this is in the trenches. This is how we make it. And Eboo, as we continue the conversation, this whole idea of building, we always say it's impossible to build a bridge if you're driving a wedge. It just doesn't work that way. And I know part of what you talk about in your book is this idea of how do we remove those wedges of racism, of prejudice, of division, so that we can build and move the country forward.
The way that I write about America's diverse democracy in my book, We Need to Build, and the model that we use within our whole organization here at Interfaith America is a potluck dinner. And the thing about a potluck is that it relies on the contributions of people, which means you have to treat people as contributors. You don't say to somebody, I know that you're so oppressed and marginalized that you don't have a dish to contribute. That would be insulting.
Yeah.
You treat people as if they can bring something to the table. That's number one.
Love that.
Number two, you want a diversity of people bringing things to the table. You don't want everybody just to bring bread or everybody just to bring a spicy dip. For a potluck to be awesome, you need people who are bringing bread and people who are bringing spicy dips. And actually, what's amazing is when those two things go so wonderfully together. Somebody's crusty bread from Eastern Europe and somebody else's spicy dip from the Middle East. But as you're pointing out, Boyd, there are things that make it harder for some people to bring their dish to the table. And that's racism. That's sexism. That's misogyny, that's homophobia, that's Islamophobia, that's anti-Semitism, that's the anti-Mormon sentiment, which still exists in the United States. Those are barriers to people's contributions, and they're hurtful because they violate the dignity of the individuals and communities who have so much to contribute, and they're stupid because they make the potluck less delicious for everyone.
That's so important. And I want to go back for just a second on this idea of everyone bringing something to the table. Far too often, we treat those that are struggling, we treat them like liabilities to be managed rather than assets with an unlimited human potential, divine potential. How do we get to that part of the conversation? Because I think you've nailed it in terms of if we don't treat people that way, that we know they bring something to the table, and we can't wait to experience what they bring to the table. We're never going to get to the rest of the story.
I think that's right. I think we have to begin with recognizing, in my religious tradition of Islam, that people are given the breath of God. And so that gives you immediate, an immediate piece of divinity within you, right? Yeah. And of course, in the Mormon tradition, there's a different, an equally powerful understanding of people having divine potential. If you have divine potential, you're able to make a contribution, and we have to begin there. And I think part of what's happened with too much social change work in the world that I'm principally in, which is a more progressive world, is that it begins by highlighting the obstacles in front of people rather than the opportunities in front of them. It highlights the aspersions that are cast upon people rather than the assets that they have. And let me say, it is harder to be Black in America than white. It's harder to be a woman than a man. It's harder to be gay than to be straight. I don't want to make any bones about that. And yet, we have to first see people's potential. We have to first see their strengths. We cannot constantly ask people to recite a narrative of their own weakness, because that's a form of entrapment. We need people to feel their own strength and power, because that's the way that people have psychological health. That's the way they move forward, and that's the way they contribute.
So important. I want to get to some of the work that you've been doing in terms of your organization and what that means in terms of interaction with governments or universities, private companies, civic organizations. What kind of convening are you doing? What kind of conversations are you having, and what are you seeing in terms of the results?
Sure. So I would invite everybody to visit our website, interfaithamerica.org. There's a terrific 2-minute video that we have in the website that kind of shows what an Interfaith America could look like. We are the largest interfaith organization in the United States, and we run programs with hundreds and hundreds of campuses. We run an annual Interfaith Leadership Summit that brings hundreds of students, staff, and faculty to Chicago every August to get trained to be interfaith leaders. They go back to their campuses, and they organize service and dialogue projects with students from different religious communities. We have this amazing program right now called Team Up, which is a partnership with Habitat for Humanity, the YMCA, and Catholic Charities, where each of those entities at the local level will be widening their welcome. They'll be proactively looking for people from different identities and ideologies to bring into their summer camps, to bring to their Habitat for Humanity builds, to bring to their Catholic Charities, social service agencies, and there will be training for how to build bridges amongst that wide diversity. We do a lot of work now with private companies and with healthcare, hospital systems, and tech companies, for example, that are wanting to positively and proactively engage their religious diversity internally for everything from better health outcomes to an improved bottom line. The positive and proactive engagement of religious diversity is relevant in every sector of our society. And Interfaith America, the organization that I lead, seeks to be the partner of those entities seeking to get the most out of their religious diversity for positive ends.
I love that. And I just love this whole idea. We often talk about the melting pot example is bad. Just from our good friend Reverend Amos Brown from the historic Third Baptist Church of San Francisco. He has. I'll have to send this to you because you will love it. He does a little riff on. It's not a melting pot; it's a salad bowl where everybody brings their diversity, and the carrots don't have to look like the tomatoes, and the crispiness of the cucumber doesn't have to go with anything else. And it's this. Everybody brings that uniqueness, that value, and comes together and enhances one another. And then he describes a melting pot of just kind of a really bad stew. If we all lose our identity in the process, then we just kind of got a mush of a mess. And I think what you're doing and what you're building, I think this is important and crucial. And so as we close out, give us the therefore what of the organization of the book when people have had that experience. Reading what you've written, going through some of the things that you're doing as an organization, what do you hope they walk away with? What do you hope they think differently? How do you hope they act differently as a result?
Well, I love the salad bowl metaphor, and I really build on it with the idea of the potluck supper.
Yeah, I love it.
So many of us have been to a potluck, and the thing about a potluck is that it takes a community to have a potluck. It takes a leader to invite people to the potluck, but a potluck doesn't happen without a diversity of people, whereas a salad can be made by a single person. I would love for people to read We Need to Build and to use it within their church, their hospital system, their school. I want them to think of it as a manual for personal development, for leadership, for social change, for institution building, for inspiration. I'd love them to partner with Interfaith America programs and for them to experience our trainings and to think of themselves as an interfaith leader who is starting an Interfaith Habitat for Humanity build, who is running interfaith programs in the school that they lead, who is finding shared values amongst people from different faiths, who is learning the theology of interfaith cooperation within their own religion, who realizes that Judeo-Christian, that chapter of American history, which starts in the 1930s and whose purpose is really to expand the American tent beyond Protestant to welcome Jews and Catholics and Mormons and other religious communities that are becoming more prominent and visible in the early 20th century. The term Judeo-Christian was invented to welcome those folks into the American tent. And for the most part, it's been successful. But the chapter is coming to an end. Yeah. We are way more diverse than we were in 1930 or 1950 or 1980. We are now truly interfaith America.
Great insight, fantastic perspective, and real world, real results, which we love. And it is true that faith in the future of America begins with faith in the future of America. And Eboo Patel is part of driving that, very important as the founder and president of Interfaith America and the author of We Need to Build, Field Notes for Diverse Democracy. It is one everybody ought to be checking out. Eboo, thank you so much for creating time for us today, for your work, and we look forward to having you back to continue the discussion.
Boy, terrific to be with you. Thank you.
Great insight. We'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. When we come back, more Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. Longtime KSL TV anchor Dick Nourse has passed away. KSL News Radio's Amy Kobe reports.
His face and voice were synonymous with the evening news in Utah for 43 years. Throughout his career, he covered the Ted Bundy trial and the Mark Hoffman murders, and he was the only Utah television reporter to go to Vietnam during the war.
You may have heard of Nourse, Welding, and James. I'm Nourse. I started here in 1964. Bob and Paul came over in 1965.
Dick started his career in radio, covering news in Colorado and Utah. Here's his last sign-off on KSL TV.
Success is not a goal. It's a journey. So I can't say goodbye, just good night.
Dick was 83 years old. The National Weather Service of Salt Lake City just announced in a tweet that there is an increased risk of flash flooding for southern Utah national parks and recreation areas. Make sure to check in with local visitor centers or ranger stations before heading out and have a plan if threatening weather approaches. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says he can see a deal coming together on the debt ceiling. ABC's Lindsay Watts has the latest from Washington.
Speaker McCarthy says there's no debt deal yet, but he sees a path to get there.
Where we were a week ago and where we are today is a much better place because we've got the right people in the room discussing it in a very professional manner with all the knowledge and all the background from all the different leaders and what they want.
McCarthy says there needs to be a deal by this weekend to give Congress enough time to pass legislation before the predicted default date on June 1st. He emphasized this won't be the clean debt ceiling bill Democrats wanted. Lindsay Watts, ABC News, Washington.
Your money at this moment. The Dow is in the green, 115 points. The S&P up 39 points. The NASDAQ up 188 points. Coming up, we'll take a look at the weekend forecast. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
This summer, the political season heats up.
By August, it'll be time for debates. Can you believe it?
We're planning coverage of the real issues, the important stories that impact how we live.
Listen each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Register for breaking news updates by texting the word news to the Cypress Credit Union KSL text line at 57500.
The Utah Division of Emergency Management says make a plan. Identify a meeting place outside your home in case of fire and outside your neighborhood in case you're separated in a disaster. Get a kit. Besides your disaster kit, have at least a 2-week supply of food and water stored at home. Be informed. Check your earthquake and flood insurance for your home. And finally, get involved. Remember, when family members take action toward preparedness, you will all be ready. Visit beready.utah.gov and get details. That's beready.utah.gov.
Don't be worried, be ready. KSL News Radio is partnering with Be Ready Utah to provide the plans your family needs for an emergency, the tools and supplies to keep on hand, and the knowledge on how to keep a cool head. It's Be Ready Utah. Listen for Be Ready tips and tools each Tuesday with Dave Dujanovic. Plus, find the latest preparation info at beready.utah.gov. That's beready.utah.gov. Be Ready Utah with KSL News Radio.
Join the KSL Greenhouse Show as they broadcast live this Saturday at Landscape Supply of Utah and Draper. Find everything you need for a beautiful yard. LandscapeSupplyofUtah.com.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have an accident in Weber County, northbound I-15 near mile marker 348 Harrisville Road. They're getting that moved out of traffic to the right shoulder. Cyprus Credit Union's got you covered. Open a new Visa Platinum card and pay 0% for the first 6 months on all purchases and balance transfers. Learn more at cypruscu.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. The next few days are going to be really nice. There'll be partly sunny skies, highs in the 80s. It's until next week. That's when we're going to have some more of those afternoon thunder showers moving in. Right now it's 76 degrees and partly sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, we've obviously had a string of bank failures. The banking sector and our government's been scrambling to mitigate damages, search for the cause, look for the cure. But often we're stuck at the headline stage of finger pointing and placing blame, and we don't get to the better question, the more important factors that might be weighing into all of that. Fantastic piece in The Hill today. Shahed Naeem and a few colleagues taking a look at what is actually happening, especially when it comes to this area of mergers within the system, that might be part of that underlying beyond the headline kind of cause. And Shahed, great to have you on the program today. Great piece in the Hill today, and Shahed is the policy analyst at the American Economic Liberties Project, and appreciate you joining us today. And just kind of give us the lay of the land first in terms of the banking industry, the failures, and what we should be looking at.
Hi, Boyd. Thanks so much for having me today. Really, it's great to be here. So as you mentioned, the banking industry is having a little bit of turmoil this year. We've had a number of collapses. We had Silvergate, Signature, Silicon Valley Bank got a lot of press, and most recently First Republic. So, the banking industry is under a lot of strain. Regulators are taking notice, but not all of them necessarily in the right direction. So we're seeing a lot of hearings this week. There was a hearing today on the Senate Banking Committee, and some of these regulators were really getting grilled in front of the American public. So, yeah, a lot of attention on the banking industry at the moment.
Yeah, and one of those comments that everyone kind of did a little bit of did she really say that? When Secretary Yellen called for regulators to be open to even more bank mergers. And give us kind of some sense of that, because to me that was kind of a, whoa, wait a minute. Did she really say that? Did she really mean that?
Yeah, it's funny. I think this was a comment made at the G7 summit last weekend, and she was talking to some reporters on the sidelines and was discussing some of the pressure that's been on these regional banks, especially in the U.S., given the turmoil. And yeah, she said that it could lead to further consolidation in the industry. Banks are looking to mergers to stay afloat as they're under more pressure. And most importantly, what she said was that she thinks that bank regulators will be open to more mergers. And that's a big problem. It raised a lot of eyebrows. We're hearing the banking industry start to say the same thing. It's a bit of a vicious cycle where we have, a banking industry that lobbied pretty hard for the 2018 regulatory rollbacks that certainly contributed to the current crisis. And, once they got those rollbacks, there was a huge rush of big mergers. 8 of the 10 biggest mergers of the past decade in banking have come since 2019, which is 1 year after those rollbacks. And now the banks are under more pressure. They're looking for those mergers as an easy way to protect themselves. So those mergers have a lot of consequences, and it feels like our top government officials, like Secretary Yellen, should be focused on looking out for Americans.
Yeah, and so interesting. This is one of those wraparound issues where you start with some deregulation under the Trump administration back in 2018. And then you had a Democratic administration and the regulators kind of saying, okay, maybe monopolies aren't so bad, so it's almost like role reversals and full circle moments. But tell us why. Get us into the nitty gritty of what you see as the pattern, and then why is that risky or potentially devastating for banks in the future?
That's a great question. And I think it's also important to mention, it's not just the Trump administration that pushed through those rollbacks. There were a number of Democratic senators that were on board with that. Really the corporate world has a lot of sway in our government, unfortunately. And so, that perspective is well represented. But it's a tough direction to go with a lot of these mergers. As we know that banks get more, they get bigger and more powerful, and they pose a greater risk to the financial system as a whole. So some of these regional banks that failed this year, they were a lot smaller than our, Wall Street behemoths that, the JPs and the Citigroups. But we saw their failures really affect the banking sector. The banks are supposed to be able to fail without taking down the entire economy. And turns out, the bigger and the more complex they get, the less and less likelier that gets. I mentioned the Senate Banking Committee hearing this morning, and Senator Elizabeth Warren actually put it quite bluntly, and she said the biggest threat to the U.S. banking system is concentration and consolidation.
Oh, that's fascinating. And so, as you look at that projecting forward, what does good policy look like in that space?
It's really critical we crack down on this wave of big bank mergers that we're in. A lot of Americans are seeing and feeling these consequences. We know that bank mergers mean higher fees at your banks, fewer convenient services, extended hours and safety deposit box, but they also mean more expensive mortgages and business loans that are harder to get. Banks that merge, they have market power, right? And they don't have to compete as hard. We can see that with big banks like Wells Fargo that are in, 1 in 3 American households. Banks, when they merge, they cut jobs, they close bank branches for redundancies, and, communities really get devastated. One of the biggest mergers since 2008 was a few years ago. SunTrust and BB&T is now Truist. And right after the merger, they closed around a third of their locations, 800 bank branches and thousands of jobs. And that's not good for anyone. Right. And certainly not good for the financial system.
Yeah. And are we on a path? Does it seem if the regulators really are going to say maybe this consolidation is okay for now, does that just lead us down the same path? We've been talking a lot today about the absolute predictability of consequences. Is the absolute predictability and consequence of all of this, do we end up with too big to fail moments where, again, we end up with government bailout of institutions that, as you said, the market should be able to handle some of those failures and absorb it back in?
Yeah, we want to have a banking system that is safe and serves the public, not the other way around. And I think, we're taking some small steps towards that. The Biden administration has introduced a little bit tougher scrutiny on some of these big bank mergers, and the Department of Justice and other bank regulators are taking another look at what their procedure looks like for reviewing these deals. So I think there might be some hope in sight that, the really lax antitrust enforcement that has led to a really highly concentrated bank sector, that era might be coming, somewhat to an end. But it's really critical that, it's a whole of government approach against consolidation, especially in banking, and that, our top government officials like Secretary Yellen are able to get behind the Biden administration's competition priorities and say, look, we've had enough of consolidation. The American people certainly have. They've borne the consequences of it from top to bottom. Yeah. And, it's really important that this is a problem that continues to get a lot of scrutiny and action.
Yeah. And final question for you. What should we be keeping our eye on moving forward? Are there hearings? Are there proposals? Are there things on the horizon? What are you watching for?
There's a lot of hearings and there is a lot of legislation that's being introduced, but there's a lot of really important work happening at the agencies. So the Department of Justice, as I mentioned, is revamping its bank merger guidelines as well as its merger guidelines as a whole. And those are the, Department of Justice's kind of roadmap for how bank regulators and courts and other, legal entities should evaluate whether or not they approve these mergers. So there is some movement there, and so the bank regulators are going to have to take a little bit of a firmer stance on some of these issues. And so I think really looking at what the bank regulatory agencies like the FDIC and the OCC and the Federal Reserve, they've been pretty lax. The bank regulatory agencies in the past 20 years, they haven't denied a single bank merger, even as we've lost, thousands of banks. And the industry has come under the control of, the top 6 banks control more assets than, all the other banks combined. So it's really, I think it's incumbent on the bank regulatory agencies. And I think we'll hopefully see some movement there as they start to tighten up and kind of move past their lax enforcement towards an era where we are, really accounting for the harms that these mergers bring on working people and everyday Americans.
Yeah, great insight. Shahed Naeem, policy analyst at the American Economic Liberties Project. A great piece at thehill.com today. Shahed, thank you so much for joining us. Great perspective.
Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
All right, we'll step aside for one last break. Come back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Getting close to retirement? Or have you retired? You've probably got a ton of stress-filled questions on your mind. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth. Getting a second opinion with an individualized investment plan is vital, and our fiduciary advisors do just that. Take it from this Trajan Wealth client.
It was just so pleasant, so comfortable. I think we had 7 different accounts, just stuff scattered all over the place. And then so we just started, here's this, move this. And he even explained it a couple different times. But if I have more questions, he said, just give us a call. And that's what I love. He's a phone call away. I'm glad I know these guys. Such a huge weight off my shoulder.
Imagine not second-guessing investments or monthly retirement income. That's the peace of mind you'll get from working with Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600 today or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Actual client, no compensation, no conflicts. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Well, as much as I have loved my soda weight loss journey, nothing feels better than losing 37 pounds in just 90 days, sustaining it for the next year and a half. I feel great. I look better. I'm doing the things that I want to do. But what I love more than that is seeing other people get the same results. It is so fun for me to be out in public and for someone to come over and just whisper, I did it. I did it. I met my health goal. Some people had lost, 37 pounds, 50 pounds, 75 pounds. And all of those were just so extraordinary. And I love being part of those stories because at SOTA Weight Loss, SOTA Weight Loss, state of the art, it's so simple. You have a coach, you have a nutritionist to help you along the way. The pounds and inches fall away, and you can get to that healthy lifestyle that you want to live. You've heard me say it before. When it comes to your soda weight loss journey, there's no time to lose. There's only time to win. So join me. This is a fun journey, and it'll make you feel great. Check it out at sodaweightloss.com, SOTAweightloss.com.
Is it time to replace your roof? Intermountain West Contractors can finish most projects in just one day using top-tier quality materials at an affordable price. Visit IWCroofing.com.
Give your small business one tech solution that checks all the boxes. It's all here with the Comcast Business Complete Connectivity Solution. It's cyber threat security for peace of mind. Check. The power of the largest, fastest, reliable network for small business. That's a triple box check right there. And save up to 75% a year on your wireless bill with Comcast Business Mobile. Check and cha-ching. It's everything you need to keep your business connected. From the company powered by the next generation 10G network. The complete connectivity solution. Get started for just $49 a month for 12 months when you add mobile. And ask about an $800 prepaid card. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Ends 5/21/23. Restrictions apply. Requires 2-year agreement, EcoBill, and autopay. New 100 megabits per second internet and security edge customers only. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. Compares weighted average of top 3 carriers. Taxes and fees extra. Reduced speeds after use of monthly data. Savings vary.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
We met with the soda weight loss people a couple of weeks ago, and we found out that there are some people in Utah who have lost weight, like I have on soda weight loss, who sent flowers to their nutritionists.
Why not?
To thank them, because really, and my nutritionist, I've worked with 2 different nutritionists at Soda, and not only did she help me get through the weight loss phase whenever I'd bump up against something or I'd plateau, she'd help me push through. But since I've been in maintenance, which is a year plus now, she's made sure that I've kept the weight off, and I do owe her a debt of gratitude.
Yeah, sending flowers a good idea. Sending candy, probably not.
Right.
In this situation. But as I've told you before, my daughter Amber lost 42 pounds, and she's been able to keep it off as well. And yes, she gains a few pounds here and there.
That's
and then
natural.
gets right back onto the track with the help of that great nutritionist in the maintenance phase, which you can stay on for as long as you need to at no extra charge. Find out more. Go to sodaweightloss.com, spelled SOTA. Think Tim and Amanda. It is state of the art.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, there's an increased risk of flash flooding for southern Utah national parks and recreation areas for today and tomorrow. Second, longtime KSL TV anchor Dick Nourse has died at the age of 83 after battling cancer. Third, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says he can see a deal coming together on the debt ceiling. Right now, it's 76 degrees and partly sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And as we round out the program today, I actually want to go right back to where we started the day today with the sad news of the passing of Dick Nourse, of course, an award-winning television and news anchor for KSL. He worked as a news anchor since 1964, started in 1964. Passed away today at the age of 83, and we were very fortunate in the first segment of the show today to talk to Carol Mikita from KSL, who shared a lot of her insight and memories about an extraordinary legacy from someone who was often bigger than life, who was human, who was open, who dealt with challenges and difficulties, and did it all in a most extraordinary way. And I loved that Carol shared when she was young and in the profession, how Dick Nourse was willing to share, to teach, to share resources, and not this idea that there's a zero-sum game out there, but that everybody can win. There's enough and to spare, and that kind of teaching and mentoring and coaching is so important. And it's so interesting on this program. We often look at the challenges in leadership, the deficit of leadership we sometimes have at the highest levels of government or even in big business. And sometimes that's lacking in our communities as well. And so when you look at a life like Dick Nourse and that legacy over a sustained period of time, you look at the conversation we had with Eboo Patel talking about faith in America, and how faith and faith-based groups are such an enormous part of civil society and of the kind of economic benefit that comes to everybody when you have that kind of social capital being deployed. But that takes someone building a legacy and stepping up to the plate. Really interesting. We had David Brooks, award-winning New York Times columnist, on the program, and as he often frames it, the core that we all need is to see deeply and to be deeply seen. And I often reflect about that as I look at legacy, people who leave legacies in community. They do it in such a powerful way because for them, it's not about being watched or liked or looked at or retweeted. It's about seeing deeply and sharing and recognizing that value. And I really believe that in order for families or organizations or communities to thrive, people have to see. You have to see the value in others, and then you have to feel that others see the value in you. And that whole idea of seeing deeply and being deeply seen, to me, is where legacies happen. Not just individual legacies, legacies in families, in sports teams, in businesses, in communities, in countries. And it's worth noting how important it is that we see and then that we express that we have that understanding of the value that each one of us have. I remember the old story, the parable of a father that was dying, and he called his son to his bedside, and he gave him this old pocket watch. And the father said, your grandfather gave me this watch. It's more than 200 years old. But before I give it to you, I want you to go to the watch shop and tell the owner that you want to sell it and ask him what he would pay. And so the son runs off down the street, down to the watch shop, and he returns and he says the watchmaker said he'd pay $5 for the watch because it's old and scratched. And so then the father says to the son, now go to the coffee shop and ask the owner if he would be interested in buying the pocket watch and what he would be willing to pay. And the son runs down the street to the coffee shop, and he quickly returns. He tells his father the coffee shop owner said he didn't have much use for an old pocket watch, but he offered $3 for it. And then finally the father says, now go to the museum and show them the watch. And the son leaves and runs down the street, goes to the museum, and returned with just this look of astonishment on his face. And he said, Father, the curator of the museum offered me $1 million for this pocket watch. And the father closes his eyes and says, I wanted you to experience for yourself that the right place and the right people will value your value in the right way. So don't put yourself in the wrong place with the wrong people and then get angry that you don't feel valued. Don't stay in a place. Don't stay with people that don't value your value. You have to know your worth, and then you have to be confident in your value. That's how legacies get built. And so it's a two-part thing. One, we have to recognize the value we have in ourselves, and we also have to make sure we're looking for and finding and declaring the value that we see in others. Because that's where community's born. That's where mentorship begins. That's where leadership actually happens. And sadly, a lot of the so-called leaders that we talk about today are only interested in their own value. They spend their days promoting their own agenda, preserving their own power, often preventing, stiff-arming everyone else to keep them away so that they can have maximum benefit. And, we see that in the politics for sure. That preservation of power rather than the building of legacy that often just ends up pretty empty in the end. And so the challenge for all of us, and as we've been talking throughout the day today, whether it's someone like a Dick Nourse taking and helping those in the newsroom, young or old, experienced or beginner, having that kind of vision to see the value in others and then to be willing to invest in it. There is nothing more important that we do every day than to invest a little time, a little attention in somebody else. Dick Nourse did that throughout his career. And whether it was for people serving in Vietnam and the mothers that were at home, whether it was for fellow cancer survivors, he saw the value. He declared the value. And then he lived the value himself. And that's the test for all of us. That's how you actually leave fingerprints in the world. Which I think is the most important job any of us have, is to see deeply and to help others see their own value and their own potential. Because that's the only way we can ever really link and lock arms as a society and build the world that we always talk about. Well, that'll wrap it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I am Boyd Matheson, and as always, as you go out into the world today,
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
It's 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. Good afternoon. I'm Maria Shaleo, sitting in today for Jeff Kaplan. It's partly cloudy in downtown Salt Lake City, 78 degrees. KSL's top story. Longtime KSL TV anchor Dick Nourse has passed away. KSL News Radio's Amy Kobe reports.
His face and voice were synonymous with the evening news in Utah for 43 years. Throughout his career, he covered the Ted Bundy trial and the Mark Hoffman murders, and he was the only Utah television reporter to go to Vietnam during the war.
You may have heard of Nourse Welding and James. I'm Nourse. I started here in 1964. Bob and Paul came over in 1965.
Dick started his career in radio, covering news in Colorado and Utah. Here's his last sign-off on KSL TV.
Success is not a goal. It's a journey. So I can't say goodbye, just good night.
Dick was 83 years old. He will be missed. Court documents recently obtained by KSL show a lengthy custody battle before a murder-suicide in Salt Lake over the weekend. KSL News Radio's Hugo Ricard-Bell is live with details. Hugo?
Maria, Salt Lake Police say 49-year-old Path Gundy murdered his 16-year-old son, Moses Gundy, in his neuropsychology clinic last weekend. According to numerous court documents, Gundy and his wife, Leah Moses, filed for divorce in 2009. What followed was a lengthy court battle over child custody spanning years. The most recent legal proceeding was last month. Court records state Moses filed for protective orders against Gundy in 2009 and 2011. And in January 2022, Gundy was awarded full custody of Ohm, who he killed a little over a year later. Reporting live, Hugo Ricard-Bell, KSL News Radio.
The Safe UT app that allows kids and adults to get immediate help during a crisis isn't going away anytime soon. State Senator Daniel Thatcher tells David Dujanovic the system behind the app has been amazing and it's helped many Utahns.
About the possibility of the program going away, let me just be clear. It will never go away. Just like 911 will never go away, there will always be a need to reach out for crisis services.
A commission over the app will be reviewed, and Thatcher says that's just normal procedure to make sure everything is working properly. Our top national story this hour, the Supreme Court has sided with social media today in two cases involving victims killed in terrorist attacks.
The two cases look at whether social media companies can be sued over content on their platforms. The first case brought by family of victims of a terror attack in Turkey. They alleged Facebook, Twitter, and Google assisted in the growth of ISIS, the group responsible for the attack. In a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court ruled there was insufficient evidence. In the second case, parents of a woman killed in an ISIS attack in Paris wanted to pin some responsibility on YouTube, saying it amplified ISIS material. The Supreme Court declined to weigh in, sending the case back to the lower court. Lindsay Watts, ABC News, Washington.
President Biden is in Hiroshima, Japan at the G7 summit. He's there as tensions rise between the U.S. and China. China admitted that it's being excluded from conversations at the G7, but State Department spokesman Vedant Patel says the U.S. is ready to invite China into the conversation.
The G7 is not about one country or another. It is about what these collective economies can do as a whole in partnership for the world, for the international community. And that is what you are going to see President Biden, Secretary Blinken, and other leaders who are there right now reiterate in their engagements while in Hiroshima.
China is hosting its own summit with 5 other countries in Central Asia. A U.S. House hearing today focused on some FBI agents who lost their security clearances after the agency said that they supported some of the theories behind the January 6th Capitol riot. ABC's Catherine Falders has more.
2 of these agents who are testifying before the committee today had their clearances revoked. They were either at the Capitol or were posting information on their social media accounts or on their emails about January 6th, espousing alternate theories, for example. Now, Republicans are saying that because their security clearances were revoked and there's obviously an ongoing investigation, they've been suspended while this happens, Republicans are essentially saying that they're being retaliated against. The FBI, of course, would disagree with that.
Democrats on the committee say that the Republicans on the committee failed to provide evidence that suggested the FBI suspended the agents due to their political ideologies. St. George has banned public comment during city council meetings. Legal analyst Greg Skorda says a Supreme Court ruling found that this is legal.
Regardless of the form involved, the government may impose time, place, and manner restrictions on speech that takes place on government property.
The city's mayor banned the comments after a group of residents disrupted meetings after the council approved a drag show which took place more than a year ago. First look traffic. Good afternoon, Ricky. Any major traffic problems?
We have some good news, Maria. Open once again. Highway 89 is now open in both directions from the earlier flooding between Thistle at the Highway 6 junction and Fairview. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Nice to start the afternoon on a positive note. And coming up, Jeff's take on memes. Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News is next.
Hi there, this is Clark Ivory with Ivory Homes. 2023 is going to be amazing, especially if you choose to move into a new Ivory home. If you want to buy a new Ivory home but aren't ready to sell your existing home, we can help out. Smart Move Guarantee takes all the hassle out of renting your existing home. They manage the rental process and maintenance and guarantee your rental rate for 3 years. Smart Move Guarantee is exclusive to Ivory Homes. Drop by one of our model homes today.
Can you believe it? Just when you thought the savings at Paris RV can't get any better. Right now, it's Hot Deals Month at Paris RV, and you can save thousands on the easy-to-tow Forest River Rockwood 1640 LTD for only $12,995 or $146 a month. Need a bunkhouse? Save over $13,000 on the Gulfstream Amerilite Ultralight 248BH for $19,995 or $225 per month. Oh, you want to drive your rig so Mama can make you a sandwich on the way.
You want some cheesy poofs too?
Then climb aboard the Gulfstream Conquest Class C 6237 LE for only $79,995 or $636 a month. You're saving almost $36,000. See Paris RV for details. This R&R lifestyle changing and cash back in your jeans is happening right now at Paris RV. With 4 locations, go to parisrv.com.
The lowest prices of the year are now at Paris RV.
Any Hour Services can help unclog any drain in your house, whether you have a backup, a clog, or a slow drain you want fixed. Call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
People think saving money is hard, but really, it's easy. It's as simple as changing a few spending habits. For free tips on how to save the easy way, check out feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Get KSL Floodwatch updates on your phone this week. Text the word news to 57500 for the latest. You can also see Floodwatch coverage at the top of our website, kslnewsradio.com.
KSL News Time, 3:08.
This is My Minute of News, brought to you by Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air, anyhourservices.com. M-E-M-E. What's that spell? M-E-M-E. It's okay if you get it wrong. Here's baseball superstar Bryce Harper.
I don't even want to answer that right now because I know how many memes are going to be out there.
He said meme. Sorry, Bryce. This was a defendant on Judge Judy.
I did not start this meme. I did not make this meme.
Meme. As you probably know, the word is...
meme.
Once again?
Meme.
But a question, where's that word come from? Why is a picture with a snappy comment called a meme? Believe it or not, the term was made up before Facebook even existed. A biologist was describing how ideas go viral. Richard Dawkins started with the Greek word for imitate, mimika. And because of the viral way that ideas spread, he sort of combined it with the word gene. Mimica, gene, he got meme. This was before the internet. So how did ideas spread before Facebook? Well, consider this. The first 4 notes of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony are a meme. It spread virally. You know those 4 notes hundreds of years later. Dun, 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 dun. So fast forward, and we've seen the Ice Bucket Challenge, Pepe the Frog, and all kinds of political disinformation spread by meme and on Google. Since 2016, the word meme is searched more than the word Jesus. Call them memes or memes or memes. They're interesting, they're fun, and sometimes fake. Iran has been posting them like crazy since yesterday. But you know what's been around for thousands of years and is even better than memes? Facts. It just can't beat them. They're awesome.
Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News, only on KSL News Radio.
KSL News Time, 3:09. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s. It's brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Ricky, I'm glad to hear that Highway 89 is open.
Highway 89 is open in Utah County, both directions. They have worked so hard trying to get this flood debris cleared and that road dry again. So between Thistle at the Highway 6 junction and Fairview, you can now travel that road again. And then we're going to jump to Summit and Wasatch counties. Right now in Summit County, we have some slowdowns in place southbound on Highway 40 from Snyderville towards Jordanelle. In the valleys, southbound I-15, filling in and slowing down from 5300 south to 90th south. Sandy, all clear on the rest of your Salt Lake County freeways. Steve?
Right now, northbound 15 coasting at full speeds from downtown Salt Lake into Davis County. Had a crash reported at Antelope Drive on the right shoulder. Another crash at Ogden on westbound Harrison Boulevard at 28th Street, and some busy traffic on Highway 89. This is near Weber State University. That's both directions. Good speeds on the 215 West Belt and on the Legacy Parkway at this point. When you choose Performance Automotive in Bountiful, you're choosing exceptional service from Ford dealers. Performance Ford Lincoln, Performance Honda, Performance Toyota, and Truck Country. See performancebountiful.com. Steve Carlson in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll go ahead back the temperatures off just a touch today to 79 with a chance for thunder showers by this afternoon and evening. Overnight lows in the mid and upper 50s. Tomorrow, high of 80, partly cloudy, dry skies. We keep it dry and warm for the weekend. From the KSL Weather Center, I'm Matt Johnson.
Right now, nice sunshine, 78 degrees in downtown Salt Lake City, and still to come on Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News. Governor Cox joined me today for Let Me Speak to the Governor, and one of the subjects he talked about was immigration policies at the southern border. We'll have his take as we go in depth coming up next on KSL News Radio.
Tonight, Law & Order Thursday saves the best for last with a can't-miss season finale event. First on Law & Order, McCoy faces his greatest challenge yet, his own daughter, played by Sam Waterston's real-life daughter. How cool is that? Then in a crossover event, Benson and Stabler join forces to take down a deadly murder-for-hire website. The Law & Order Thursday season finale event, tonight on NBC.
Then on KSL 5 News at 10.
There's not really a time for minutes.
When seconds matter.
You saw shooting where?
High.
Utah's response is critical. Now, using newly accessed data and recordings, the KSL investigators examine a school's lockdown response.
Are we in a lockdown or a lockout?
What lessons can your school learn?
Lockdown protocols typically fail very badly.
Shots fired. Lessons in the lockdown. Tonight on KSL 5 News at 10.
Hello, Spring. This is your friend, Adventure. You've been on my mind, and I'm wondering where you've been. Weather's warming, and word on the street is you're looking for riders to enjoy Cedar City, Bryan Head's spectacular trails? Well, I'm told Three Peaks Recreation and Parawam's Evil Water Trail System are the bomb. Or perhaps you've changed. Maybe you're more into hiking? Kolob Canyon or Thor's Hammer Trail make a perfect meetup place. Oh, and don't forget Cedar City's spectacular views accompanied by disc golf at the Thunderbird Garden Course. Listen, I've always been here. I still like the same things, spring skiing, tubing, but I'm more mature now. My interests have expanded. There's Cedar City's Southern Utah Museum of Art, strolls downtown, fine dining or shopping. I'm more interesting than you know. Let's connect and rekindle our relationship, starting in the spot we always enjoy. Cedar City, Bryan Head. Look me up at visitcedarcity.com. Your old friend, Adventure.
With our roots in northern Utah, Holy Cross Hospital has a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. Find us at 5 Holy Cross Hospital locations and more than 45 clinics along the Wasatch Front. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
At Holy Cross Hospital, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and equally honored to care for northern Utah's vibrant communities. Find us at 5 Holy Cross Hospital locations and more than 45 clinics along the Wasatch Front. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Save your wallet as you travel for Memorial Day. Get a Utah Mobile driver's license and keep your wallet in your bag. Go to ut.mobiledl.us for more info.
KSL News Time, 3:15. The three things you need to know this hour first.
A proposed rule change from the Biden administration wants to add conservation to the list of uses for public lands. Utah's state and federal delegation now sounding the alarm. On KSL News Radio's Lindsay Ayers.
Second water from Wolf Creek in Weber County is causing a mess in a neighborhood. Crews are working to divert the water with sandbags right now. Third, traffic and weather together, beginning with Ricky Meese.
We do have delays southbound I-15 in Salt Lake County between Murray and Sandy, but we do want to give you a heads up. If you plan to travel further south, we don't really cover this area. There aren't really many cameras there to see, but road work causing delays southbound I-15 Mona into Nephi. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Another chance for some isolated storms, but cooler. I'm Matt Johnson.
Right now, 78 degrees in downtown Salt Lake City. Time for KSL's top national stories.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. It is morning in Japan and day one of the G7 summit. President Biden is there and will start the day participating in a ceremony at the Hiroshima Memorial in a few hours. It's been nearly 78 years since the U.S. used an atomic bomb on the city during World War II. ABC's Britt Clinnett is there.
We expect him to go to the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum. He may meet survivors. He is the second sitting president to visit Hiroshima after Obama. No president, though, has apologized. I spoke to an 85-year-old survivor, and she remembers vividly what happened. She wants G7 leaders to feel the sorrow and pain here and make sure that nuclear war, that nuclear action never happens again.
The White House says the president and G7 leaders will focus on China threats and Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. Members preparing to implement new sanctions and export controls, they say, to further limit Russia's access to international funds. Russia firing off another 30 missiles today across Ukraine. The Ukrainian air defense systems provided by allies, including the U.S., helping to intercept the majority of them. President Biden keeping tabs on talks to raise the debt limit back at home. He's expected to cut his trip short and return Sunday. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy today says he sees a path to a deal and could have a draft by the weekend. That would give both chambers enough time to vote before the June 1st deadline when the U.S. would default on its loan obligations.
Where we were a week ago and where we are today is a much better place because we've got the right people in the room discussing it in a very professional manner with all the knowledge and all the background from all the different leaders and what they want. I know and I can see where a deal can come together.
Ahead of a hearing tomorrow in the leaked documents case, federal prosecutors in a new filing allege National Guard member Jack Teixeira accessed classified materials without authorization in the months before the leak. You're listening to ABC News.
Time now for the KSL In-Depth. The Governor Cox joining 23 other Republican governors in support of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's hardline border security policies. Today on PBS Utah, he said he did so because he's frustrated with the federal response to immigration at the southern border.
Congress is the problem right now among immigration. States should not be trying to fix this. The Constitution is very clear that immigration is a federal issue. But states have to step in because these imbeciles in Congress can't get their crap together to do something that everybody knows needs to be done.
On KSL's Let Me Speak to the Governor, he explained to me his frustration and why he made that comment.
Earlier today, I got a little fired up, and I'm mad at Congress. I'm mad at Congress because they've abdicated their responsibilities when it comes to immigration over the past 40 years. I'm mad at the current administration and past administrations because they've dropped the ball when it comes to immigration. It's very frustrating. I think I called Congress all imbeciles and that they should all be fired. I obviously didn't mean that. We have some amazing members of Congress here in the state of Utah, some of my dear friends that I love. This is more of a 40-year frustration. Utah passed comprehensive immigration reform before I was in the legislature 10, 11 years ago, however long it's been. And the Obama administration wouldn't allow us to implement it, and then the Trump administration wouldn't allow us to implement it. So it's very frustrating. This is not hard. It's not hard. It just isn't hard. And Governor Abbott is absolutely within his rights and responsibilities to be very upset with what's happening down there.
The governor says it's a federal issue, not a state issue, and the nation's lawmakers need to take responsibility and get something done on immigration. KSL News Time, 3:19. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the nines. It's brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. What's happening, Ricky?
Delays southbound Highway 40 going into the Park City area. This is after the I-80 junction and prior to Jordanelle as you're approaching and passing SR 248. Here in the valley, we do have slowdowns already setting in for your drive home southbound I-15 Murray to Sandy. But then after that, you have a good drive from 90th South and the Southtown Mall all the way to Provo. The rest of your Salt Lake County freeway seeing a clear commute. Steve?
I-15 rolling at the full speed limit right now between downtown Salt Lake and Willard Bay State Park. We're backed up on Highway 89 right now near Weber State University both ways. Westbound 5600 South and Roy, busy between 2200 and 3100 West. Otherwise, good speeds on the 215 West Belt and on Legacy, and on Highway 89 in Davis and Weber counties between Lagoon and I-84. Black Diamond Experts, drains, plumbing, electric, heating, and air. Call before noon for same-day service. They'll be out the same day, or you'll get a $50 repair refund. BlackDiamondExperts.com. Steve Carlson, the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL 7-day forecast. How about a slight chance for storms this afternoon and evening? High 79. 80 tomorrow, partly cloudy, dry skies. Weekend looks great. 83 on Saturday. Sunday's 85. Both days mostly sunny. 83 next Monday. The thunder showers return. We'll keep a chance for afternoon T-storms on Tuesday and even Wednesday. Highs around 82. From the KSL Weather Center, I'm Matt Johnson.
It's just a beautiful afternoon. Sunny skies, 78 degrees downtown.
Tim Hughes back with my friends at Replenish Landscape Garden Products. Of course, that is Greg and Mike, and as much as we talk about Replenish, and it is in the name of the company, Greg, there are so many other things you guys provide for people that are looking to put some hardscape areas into their yard.
We have a number of different barks in different sizes and different grades that work great as a ground cover. We also have the colored wood mulches and a variety of rock products.
One of the things I've learned about you, Mike, through the years is that you're always looking for new products.
We've got great new products coming in this year, our Mountain Rose rock and Caribou rock as well. Those are beautiful rocks that you can add to your landscaping, make your yard look beautiful.
So if this is the year that you have decided you are going to finally rip that strip and save yourself some water, this is the great time to do it at Replenish Landscape Garden Products. Let me tell you where to find them. 4660 South, 200 West in Murray. You'll find them online at replenishcompost.com or give them a call today, 801-262-5142. Replenish. It's good stuff.
I'm Howard Mackler, founder of Innovation Refunds. You've heard me talking about the payroll tax refund for months. If you own a business, even if you've asked your CPA about this, you owe it to yourself to take another look. We provide a licensed and insured tax attorney who evaluates your company at my expense to determine eligibility. Businesses of all types can qualify, so go to getrefunds.com to potentially get a payroll tax refund of up to $26,000 per employee. Download the Innovation Refunds app or go to getrefunds.com. Getrefunds.com.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
"You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa."
"Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis."
If these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist and ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
What grows in the forest? Trees? Sure. Know what else grows in the forest? Our imagination, our sense of wonder, and our family bonds grow too. Because when we disconnect from this and connect with this, we reconnect with each other and build family memories we will carry with us forever. The forest is closer than you think. Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. It's easy. Just put in your zip code to find family-friendly outdoor destinations near you. You'll also find guides to free activities, games, and amazing forest facts. Give the magic of the outdoors to your kids and reconnect with your family. Find a forest near you at discovertheforest.org. That's discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Emergency medical unit, respond to 102 Maple Avenue, possible stroke victim.
When stroke occurs, you have 60 minutes to win or lose the race of your life.
There are new treatments, but you must get to a hospital fast. If you suddenly feel weakness on one side, have trouble speaking, walking, or seeing, it could be a stroke. Call 911. Get to a hospital. Because how you spend the next 60 minutes could determine how you spend the rest of your life. Stroke. Know the signs. Act in time. A message from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke.
KSL News Time 325. We are watching Utah's money. Rental prices are up more than 25% over the same period in 2019. Realtor.com says the average April rental rate was $1,734 in the country's top 50 metro markets. That's about $350 higher than 4 years ago. Dr. Pepper is partnering with Bluebell Creameries to create Dr. Pepper Float Ice Cream. Now, the treat is now available everywhere Bluebell is sold, but before you ask, it's not sold here in Utah. Disney will no longer proceed with plans to build an employee training campus in Florida. The campus would have hosted more than 2,000 California-based employees to relocate to Lake Nona, Florida. That plan has been shuttered amid rising tensions between the company and Governor Ron DeSantis. On Wall Street, the Dow was up 115 points. It closed at 33,535. The S&P was up by 39. The Nasdaq up 188 points. The Supreme Court ruling against the estate of pop artist Andy Warhol in a copyright dispute with a photographer.
The Supreme Court sided with a photographer who claimed the late Andy Warhol infringed on her copyright. At issue, a photo of rock star Prince taken by photographer Lynn Goldsmith. Warhol used the photo to make a series of silkscreens, an image he went on to sell. Warhol's estate argued he transformed the photo into something new, and his art was protected under the fair use doctrine. Justices ruled in favor of Goldsmith 7-2, saying her photo was entitled to copyright protection. Lindsay Watts, ABC News, Washington.
Troy, I am pumped for this massive grand opening at the new American Fork Bish's RV.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a wild one.
The deals are unreal, the food is free, and the fun is all day?
Yep. Clear your calendar, people. Come in May 15th to the 20th for 6 full days of epic deals, fun for the family, and free meals on Friday and Saturday from 11 to 2.
RV deals like $199 per month OAC for a new bunkhouse RV? Are you kidding me?
Plus, 2 of the hottest new travel trailers from GoPlay. High quality at an undeniable value. Available only at Bish's.
Oh, and did we mention every remaining 2022 is priced to move with no reasonable offer refused?
And we're hooking you up with 90 days no payments on approved credit for 3 months of all play and no pay.
Got a trade? We're giving max trade-in value for your current RV.
Don't miss this sale. Only May 15th through the 20th at Bish's RV in American Fork.
Previously Stewart's RV. Bish's RV, where memories begin.
SDK number 69455 and 69454. Subject to prior sale. Dealer number 822B. See dealer for details.
Soda weight loss is a program. It's not a pill. It's not a supplement. It's not surgery. It is a program that if you follow it, you'll drop the weight. That's the science behind it. And when you get that program tailored to you by the folks at Soda stands for state of the art. They follow a science. And guys, on average, drop 3 to 5 pounds of fat weight per week on this program. I've dropped over 100 pounds on Soda weight loss, and I've been able to keep it off because I have the tools available at my disposal, including being able to call somebody at Soda Weight Loss anytime I need help. That's what Soda Weight Loss is about.
And one of the great tools that Soda Weight Loss has is a nutrition program specifically for you. Nutrition's the name of the game. You figure out your nutrition, you're going to drop that weight. You're going to get rid of those ugly fat pounds you want to get rid of, and you're going to maintain it at the end of the day. It's specific to you. You have someone that will support you. They'll always be around. Look, over 5,000 people have had the same results that we have. Go check them out at sodaweightloss.com. That's sodaweightloss.com.
KSL News Time 329. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s. Brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Where are those delays, Ricky?
Early onset slowdowns waiting for you southbound I-15 Murray, almost to 90th South Sandy. Also in Salt Lake County, the rest of your Valley Freeway is not bad. Even where it's a little busy, it's still moving, which is a good sign. But southbound Mountain View Corridor, it is bogged down again. It's after 2100 South as you're approaching the 3500 South intersection. North and southbound I-15 in Utah County right now looking good between the Point and Provo. Steve?
Pretty much same thing on north and southbound 15 up north, except for a few slowdowns on the northbound side of 200 north in Kaysville. Otherwise, good speeds both ways. Westbound 5600 south and Roy filling in now and getting busy from 1900 out to 2700 west. Update your kitchen with Durden's Appliance, where they meet any competitor's price. Visit Durdens.com or on 5th South and Bountiful. Durden's, brands you know at prices you'll love. Steve Carlson in the KSL Traffic Center.
How about a drying and warming trend for the weekend? Today we've got a chance for thunder showers, 79 the high, 80 tomorrow, partly cloudy skies, and then it's mid-80s with dry skies as we work into Saturday and Sunday. From the KSL Weather Center, I'm Matt Johnson.
Right now, 78 degrees in downtown Salt Lake City.
You're listening to Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News on KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Good afternoon. KSL News Time 3:30. I'm Maria Shaleo sitting in today for Jeff Kaplan. KSL's top story this hour. KSL meteorologists say we are a week away from when we could see peak flooding. Utah Governor Spencer Cox says the state is prepared for the runoff, but he is worried about possible landslides. KSL News Radio's Amy Kobabe is live with details. Amy?
Maria, the state is monitoring over 100 landslide-prone areas right now.
I'll sleep a lot better once all of that snow is in our reservoirs.
Governor Cox says on KSL's Let Me Speak to the Governor that they are most worried about a big landslide like the one in 1983 near Thistle that caused a big mess.
In that case, what happened was it dammed off a river, then the water backs up behind the river, and eventually that dam breaks, and then you can wash away Spanish Fork.
We have had some landslides this year, most notably with 2 completely destroyed homes in Draper. Reporting live, Amy Kobabe, KSL News Radio.
Water from Wolf Creek in Weber County is causing a mess in a neighborhood. This is near 2800 North in Eden. Crews are working to divert the water with sandbags right now. There is no damage to homes. Experts are predicting a record hot year for the world sometime over the next 5 years. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has more on what this means for Utah.
Coming off of a summer full of record hot weather last year and the craziest winter we've seen in 40 years, Utah has been no stranger to extremes, but KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson says these kinds of extreme weather could happen more often.
Could it become more increasingly common? I'd say yes. That's one of the side effects to climate change.
Matt says while climate change is causing temperatures to rise, that doesn't necessarily mean we won't have as much snow or rain.
Now, Matt says Salt Lake is looking at a 50-50 chance of a normal summer. A proposed rule change about how public lands can be used has some of Utah state lawmakers and our federal delegation sounding the alarm.
This rule change would essentially add conservation to the list of approved uses for public lands. State lawmakers like Phil Lyman, though, are issuing a letter telling the BLM they're not okay with this.
It means that they can essentially have no use and call it a use. And for those people that make their living, grazing or mining or using public lands, recreation, could lose that opportunity in Utah.
Lyman argues this is just the latest move by the head of the BLM to gain control.
A former eco-terrorist who is the director of the BLM, Tracy Stone Manning, and a long history of her efforts to shut down use.
Utah's federal delegation also backing a bill to block this. The BLM says the new category is needed for protection and restoration. Lindsay Ertz, KSL News Radio.
The Bureau of Land Management just announced due to high water in the Colorado River on public lands near Moab, they are closing Kings Bottom, Williams Bottom, J.C. Park, Hell Canyon, and Goose Island campgrounds for public safety starting today. The BLM will reopen the campgrounds once the water level drops.